Thank you so much for joining, Guillaume. I think, I'm going to make a mini intro here, but I'm very excited to have you here because this is the founder-led marketing show. And I would say you're one of the masters, leaders when it comes to founder-led marketing. Definitely one of the people very out there who are kind of evangelizing, in my sense, this type of motion. So you're the founder CEO at Lempire, which you own a bunch of SaaS companies, lemlist, taplio, Tweet Hunter, lemwarm, you can list them all. I think publicly you guys speak about a collective 26 million ARR in revenue across the portfolio companies. And then obviously you are absolutely crushing LinkedIn. I think you're over 50,000 followers and posting very consistently, not just on LinkedIn. You have many other things going on too. So we're going to speak about those. But yeah, that's the mini intro. I'm super excited. Anything else you want to add to that people should know about you or the companies that you run?
No, I think it's pretty clear. Like all our companies help, like businesses grow. So it's focused, on content creation with Taplio and Tweet Hunter, and Lemlist and Lemwarm are a lot more on the outbound side. So my vision, for business is outbound and inbound should work together. And I think that's what we're going to talk about also with founder-led brand or founder-led growth, or marketing on LinkedIn and so on.
Awesome. We're going to talk about that. Just one quick note here for the guys who are either in the Zoom here with us or watching on the LinkedIn Live. Go ahead and drop questions that you have in the chat. Obviously I'm going to start off here asking Guillaume a couple questions, but I want to make these community events, I want to make them useful to you guys and not just two people lecturing at you. So you can jump in at any point, unmute yourself, ask a question that you want to ask. Be selfish, be specific, ask things that you're currently struggling with, the problems that you have, the things that you want to pick Guillaume's brain on. And so, yeah, it's totally encouraged. It's totally welcome. And then I'm going to moderate. Okay, we got Sharon, greetings, tuning in from the US East Coast on holiday. Transparency, I work with growth SaaS leaders as a content curator to accomplish what Guillaume has, looking for secrets. There you go. Okay, awesome. So maybe as a start, because I also know some people are interested just in your story. Can you say like a little bit of how you got into this game of building SaaS companies, now buying SaaS companies, growing them, bootstrapping? You kind of big on not raising VC or not a lot of money.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, maybe you want to speak a little bit to that.
Yeah, so the story started like I think 9 years ago when I started my first entrepreneurship venture. My dad basically like never go to school, same as for my mom. And eventually, when I went to business school, I wanted to launch something, that could also help them and pay back for all the sacrifices they made. So my dad could actually like print on fabrics. That was kind of like his job. So we decided to launch like a t-shirt brand, and it was like actually like a massive fail. I was 100% sure, that by building like a small community and launching it on the community, we would get like tons of sales. But in the end, we got like 6 t-shirts sold. So it was at the time like really, really hard. Now I can talk about it with a bit more distance, but even with my dad, it got like very hard because I had put a lot of pressure on him so he could produce tons of t-shirts. And from that moment on, I got kind of like just passionate about how the hell do you grow like a business, and why do business grow versus other like don't. And at that time, a friend of mine who saw me like struggled with my business asked me whether or not I was interested in learning about outbound sales. So I was like, hell yeah, like this is what I want to do. Like I want to understand how to generate money. So we started working together, and eventually we launched like an outbound agency where essentially we were booking meetings for tons of different B2B businesses, including like SaaS businesses. And this is kind of where I discovered like the SaaS business model, because I was using a lot of software, and I was also helping software grow all around the globe by doing like outbound email, outbound LinkedIn messages, cold call, etc. And at some point I was like, okay, you know what? Like I love the agency part because you're very close to your clients, etc. But I think that maybe like, because initially I'm actually like an engineer by background. So I'm like, okay, maybe I want something that's a bit more scalable. So I started like my first SaaS in 2018. That was Lemlist. And the goal was to essentially try to automate what I was doing manually with the agency, and at least simplify, like as much as possible the work of sales. So helping people find the data, helping people personalize the message, helping people like automate, like multi-channel prospecting. And step by step, like lemlist grew. You were mentioning, that I'm huge on bootstrapping. Initially, it was not a choice. I'd rather be like fully transparent about that. I was in the startup world at first. So for me, at the time, I didn't have like much money. My girlfriend was paying the rent. We were living in like 30 meters square in Paris. So I just thought, you know what, like the startup world is all about like raising funds. So that's what I'm going to do. For a month, I think I talked to maybe like 20 or 30 VCs, and I kept getting rejection messages. So I was a bootstrapper by default and not by choice. And as soon, as we started getting like traction, reaching like the first million in ARR, then 5 million in ARR, etc., eventually, like a lot of VCs started to reach out, and eventually, like in 2021, so about like 3 years ago, I sold like 20% of the business for $30 million, valuing the whole business at 150 million. And so technically, like we're still bootstrapped because we haven't raised like a single dollar. It was like more cash out and a way to de-risk the business, because obviously when you get that amount of money, I was able to like help my parents retire, like get a flat, buy some stuff. But I'm not really like materialistic in the end. So I realized like, like it's not, when you get, I mean, I was really lucky with all of that. But when you get to that stage, you kind of have a different perspective on life. And after helping like my family, my friends, like the way I could, I was like, okay, like what do I want to do? And I think like right now, I'm truly passionate about the business I'm building. I love to help people as much as possible and share my learnings, the failures, and all the things I test along the way.
All right,
Sorry
so
for
I got
the long intro.
no, I love it actually. So like a couple question, because I feel like this kind of exit, making 30 million, that's definitely one of the big goals that a lot of people have as a goal. So first personal question, like besides, retiring your parents and all those like nice things, what's like the first splurge thing that you bought for yourself selfishly after making 30 million?
To be honest, like it's really bad because like I don't know, I sold another company while I was growing lemlist, so I had like another software on the side that I sold, and with that money I had already like bought my flat. So to be honest, like I didn't actually buy anything like really cool. Like I'm a terrible driver. I love bikes, so yes, I have like really good like bikes. I don't know, like my cycling bikes are maybe like 10K or something like that, which is like quite expensive for a bike. But even with this, like I feel like, okay, it's it's something I need to be super careful with, etc. So yeah, like I think the things I buy and I love, it's more like experiences and things like that. But in reality, like if you look at my holidays, I do a lot of triathlon, I train for an Ironman, etc. So it's like for me, what I love is being in nature. And usually when I go on holiday, it's off the grid with like a tent in the mountains, and I go hiking for 7 days without anyone contacting me. And this is for me like the best life ever. So no, nothing crazy, no Rolex, no like fancy cars or watches. But yeah, maybe like flats or things like that. Like I have like a few flats and houses.
All right, all right. How did making that money change your approach to work? Because obviously you didn't retire. Did it change how you think about your work, how you
Yeah,
approach it?
definitely. Yeah, definitely. It's quite hard. Like to be honest, like I'm not gonna complain, about like making that amount of money, but I think like the initial goal, like when I started, a lot of people say like they start out as an entrepreneur, like to solve like a big problem, etc. Like that they're passionate about from the start. And for me, of course, like I love the problem I was solving, but at the same time, I was doing it for the money. Like it's like my motivation was money at first because I grew up with not a lot of money. I had no money at the time and my girlfriend was paying the rent. So, like you need money to eat. And that was like my real motivation from the start. After that, everything started growing quickly. And, like the growth in my revenue, even as a founder, because we were bootstrapped, we could take like huge dividend each year, etc. So very quickly, I started having like quite a decent like net worth. And then when we sold, everything felt, as you said, like we could essentially like retire. So I was like, okay, like is it really like what I want to do? Like 30 years old, retiring, I don't know, or 29 at the time. And after that, I was a bit lost. And then, I tried to understand what was really driving me. And I think it's a good question. I think what's the most important part of your life is to live what I call like an intentional life. So set the intention. What do you want to do with your life? What's your mission? And I think I truly love and I'm passionate when I see people, who are like stuck at some places and, with some content I produce with, like this type of events or whatever, when, like there is something that ticks and makes a huge impact on people's life. And for me, this is like really important because the biggest choices I've made along the way when I grew Lempire or lemlist or all the tools was when I had that, like little clicks, either from listening content to content or just like, like having a discussion with someone I admire.
How did, if previously your motivation was making money and then after you made all that money, your motivation switched to what sounds like kind of helping people, sparking something in people. How did that, let's say, translate downstream into like your day to day in a sense? Like, do you work more hours, less hours? Do you hire differently? Do you build differently? Do you, like what does that mean practically?
I feel like the role of a CEO like totally changed, over the years. So we were like, and we're still like a very lean company. So we're like 90 people doing like 10 million plus in EBITDA. So that's kind of like huge metrics.
Right.
And the reality, it's like my role at first was doing everything myself. So until like 1 million in annual recurring revenue, I was the only one like handling like all the business. After that, I hired a little bit a team, etc. And now I think like my role in the like 18 months have been to really build a strong COMEX, like steering committee, what I would call. So build the whole C-level suite. So my role could be like a lot more on the top of funnel, the vision, etc., etc. So things have changed. I wouldn't say that I work less because I'm really like passionate about what I do, but I work differently. I'm spending a lot more like time learning about new things, like listening to podcasts, reading books, etc., or like articles. And so the way I work is a bit different because back then I would be like, I don't know, handling like customer calls, support, etc. So it's really like being on every single fire and much more like at a place where I can just see the big picture and work on it.
So I'm going to throw out the whole agenda that I had because I'm just going to go with all the questions that I have. So guys, in the chat, if you have very specific things, you can put me back on track and put them in the chat so we can make sure that we talk about them. But to me, it sounds that you actually build a unicorn, and I'm going to like not the unicorn that people think about, which is like $1 billion plus evaluation, but an actual unicorn because you bootstrapped, you run a highly profitable company, you did it pretty fast. It's not like you've been at it for like 30 years. You run a company in a very crowded market. I mean, it's not like there's not a million cold email tools out there. And you seem to be having fun while doing it. So like that to me, like, I mean this when I say this, that to me sounds like an actual unicorn, like something that seems impossible to do. Like it seems like it's like one of those, charged with like overflowing things. And like, it's like one of those things where you think you can't have all of them. You can't have something where you don't raise VC, you're super profitable, you're in a crowded market, it happens fast, and you're having fun. So when you think about that, what do you think you did, or what are the contributing factors, or is there anything repeatable about what you did or how you approach? If someone says, look, like that sounds like the dream to me, to be able to do that.
Yeah, I will try to like give something I've put a lot of thought in the last like couple of years because it's a question I get like a lot. And I've also invested, like millions, a few millions in like other companies. And I kind of see like, why do companies succeed versus other don't? And, I try to analyze that. I think people overall are like overcomplicating business. For me, business is very simple. I call this like a transfer of beliefs across a ladder of trust. So why is it a transfer of belief? Because you as like a founder, a salesperson, you have basically a solution to a very specific problem that your potential customer have. And for your customers to accept to buy, like your solution, your service, etc., the only thing that you need is trust. If you think about it in a very like simple manner, especially in B2B. The thing that you are selling is either making you more money because people talk about like a return on investment, etc., or saving you time, which is essentially like making you more money. And the reason why, there are all these companies out there, and whenever they're selling something, the only reason why, a prospect will say no to you versus a competitor is because they don't trust you enough to achieve the results that you are promising. So when you break this down and you understand that everything that you are creating is all about trust, the question that comes down is, okay, that's cool, but how the hell do you build trust? And then, I have like this framework that I've created that's called like the triangle of trust. It's a triangle because if any of the side of the triangle is missing, it falls down and it doesn't exist. And you will see why it's interesting, because the triangle is basically like the foundation is the emotional connection. So for example, right now we're talking and some people might think like, oh yeah, Finn, I love the way he asks questions. I think this guy is like super smart. I love, how he's creating content on LinkedIn, etc. That's awesome. We have it on screen. So the emotional connection, is like the foundation. And some people might say, you know what, like, Guillaume, like, I don't like his French accent. I think, he's overdoing it. And eventually, like, they don't like me. And, this is something sometimes they can't control. Maybe, they met a French person in the past that they hate, etc. Like, we can't control this kind of thing. So that's why, in business, the success also depends a bit of luck, because the emotional connection is something that you can work on, but that you cannot control 100%. But the two other parts, which are credibility and reliability, are things you can control. So the credibility typically is how exactly do you show that you are the right person to solve the problem you're talking about. So if you take our journey, for example, when I started Lemlist, as you said, it was like a super crowded market. So how do you stand out in a crowded market? For me, it was very simple. I looked at every single competitors we had, and I was looking at what content do they share. And if you look at it, and often content online is meant to rank via SEO. So it's a lot of often, like marketers who are creating content that is actually not relevant for sales at all because they've never done sales in their entire life. So I started every single week sharing all the campaigns that I was running using Lemlist. So I would show people, hey, here's how exactly I'm booking meetings doing outbound with cold email and cold LinkedIn message using Lemlist. Here's my template. Here's a framework I use. Here's how many steps I'm doing. And here are the exact results I'm getting and the meeting I'm booking. So whenever you see that, obviously you're like, okay, when G is talking about something, he knows what he's talking about because I can see what he's doing. I can see his sales because obviously, I would also share like, all right, like sometimes, I even had like people calling me like French motherfucker, like stop, messaging me again. And I would share it publicly, like, of course, when you receive this kind of message, you feel bad, etc. But that's the reality of doing sales. Sometimes, like you have people, they're having like a really bad day and they go mad and that's fine, like it's part of the game. And I would share all the ups and downs and that will build a lot of credibility. And then the reliability is basically like when you say that you can deliver on something, do you actually deliver it? And for that, in my opinion, that's where most like companies or founders, when they launch their business, are failing, which is how do you create a user story? So whenever you close the deal, what is the after sale like? Like, are the people actually getting the results that you promised? Because it might work for you, but will it work for them too? And for me, this was also like a key part. So this is when I started creating like tons of content on educating people, masterclasses, so that they can actually learn how to do sales, get the best results possible. And from there, I would build like user stories and then start sharing, like people's results. So at first I did it with me because obviously I had no customers and I would just like share my campaigns. And eventually with the customers I onboarded, I could create all these stories. And later on, and I think you can have access to it. We have like a template library on Lemlist, and you can see all our customers, not all our customers, but some of our customers who have accepted to share all their campaigns and the results they had. And by doing that, basically you have like the three parts of your trust triangle. And then I think everything becomes easier.
Was that initially?
Yeah.
Was that initially on LinkedIn where you created that content?
Yes, but my story with LinkedIn, like the profile I have is actually like only 1 year old. So unfortunately, I can't. LinkedIn basically like the other project I sold was a tool that I created on LinkedIn. And the
Lempire?
moment I sold it, LinkedIn reached out to me because they said that it was like against in terms of services, etc. And they decided to ban my profile. And that profile, I never could get it back. And it was like I think 3 years ago or something like this. No, 4 years ago even. So I had to
Wow.
create like a multiple profile. Every time they see me popping, like they want to ban me again. So yeah, maybe
So
this
when's the
profile
next
will.
time?
Yeah. So but for me it's fun because like in reality, like if you want to know the full story, in total, I've created like 5 profile on LinkedIn in the last 6 years that I took from 0 to more than 50K followers. So like
Well,
this is my yeah 5th or 6th LinkedIn profile.
well, I
Yeah.
think now let's jump into that then. So given that you did it 6 times, if a SaaS founder comes to you, they're at 0 followers or 100 or 500 or whatever. They have a little startup, they have a couple customers, and they now want to go to 50,000 followers and actually use it to grow their SaaS company. Like what's the blueprint playbook that you
Mm.
would give them?
Yeah. So there are several things you can do as a founder. The first thing is what I call like the Marco Polo strategy. I think it's like the easiest. So Marco Polo, everyone knows him for like discovering the Silk Road. So the road where, like you would go to Asia and bring back like tons of things to Europe, etc. In reality, so the guy like wrote tons of books, etc. But in reality, he wasn't the guy who discovered it. So even like thousands of years later, like we are like, okay, like we all know Marco Polo, but in the reality, he was like just a Venetian and he was just like, going through the same road as thousands of people had gone through before him. But the reality and why we remember him is just because he was documenting everything. So the first advice I give you as a founder, because this is the easiest, is to document your journey. Every single week, you can spend the time and say, okay, who have I reached out to? What have I learned? What are the things people are struggling with where I could actually help them and bring my knowledge to the table? Like there are lots of questions you can ask yourself and just like share your journey, share the ups, share the downs. Eventually, like I remember writing like a few posts about it back in the days where we decided to change entirely the interface because our churn rate at the time was like quite high. And when we changed the interface, no, actually it was our activation rate. Sorry. So people signing up and sending campaigns, like the ratio from sign up to sending campaigns was really low. I think it was like 20% or something like that. So we decided to change entirely like the interface. And at that moment, our churn rate, so people canceling their plan, went from, I think it was like maybe 7 or 8% at the time, and it went to like 40%. So I was like, holy shit. And that's what that happened like within a month. And people were like, we had a community and people were basically like sending hate message, etc., etc. And, they thought that our company was much bigger. Like I was taking all the product decisions. So they were like, I don't know who's the head of product, but this is so fucking stupid. So I was like, I will tell the head of product, that's me. But eventually I was still convinced, about like what I was doing because very quickly I wanted to wait and see if the activation rate would increase. And actually like we tripled our activation rate. So all the people who churned were actually not really part of the target audience that we wanted because the next month we had tripled like our activation rate and the churn dramatically decreased because only like the bad fit customer churned and the rest like would stick and see more value in the product. So for us, like all of that, this is a learning that I could share. And some people might have, like looked at this story in a relatable way, etc., etc. So I think this part is like the easy part is to basically like document your journey because it will help you a lot on the emotional connection part. Like, of course, right now it's easy for me kind of to talk about it because you could say, yeah, like you build $150 million company. So being vulnerable when you have like all this success is easy. But the reality is like back in the days, I was exactly the same. Like you can go back, to some of my articles because the content on LinkedIn is gone, but my articles and the blog I have is still there. And I was talking, about all our mistakes. And this happens from day one. So just the vulnerable side of it, I think is important because as founders, we all go through ups and downs. As people, we all go through ups and downs. And I think people love also the hero journey. When you're facing like an obstacle, it gets like really hard. But then some people will want to cheer for you. And for me, that happened. I know like a lot of sales conversation started by sharing, like the mistakes I've done, by sharing my doubts. Also, when you're, I don't know, like 6 months in, a year in, and you don't see the traction that you had. Because for us, like the first year, we didn't reach like a huge monthly recurring revenue. We had growth every single month, but we started at like a very low. So I think the first month we made maybe like $500. So even if you're growing like 20%, it means that the next month, you're at like $600. so 20% month over month is huge, but going from 500 to 600, I was still eating pasta, so my mom is Italian, so I'm fine with pasta, but like down the line, it was not great. So you take the growth over a year. I think it took us at like maybe 10K or something like this. So it was not huge, but so a lot of doubts, etc. And I think that's like one part that's helpful. And another advice that I could give is, as a founder, you have like a unique take on a specific situation, because like you created a company, which means that you were like crazy enough to go after a problem that you want to solve, which means that your vision on how to solve the problem is either unique. You might be copying something that exists and it's fine, but in any case, you're spending so much time working on that project that you have like a unique insights about it, and you should share that also. So to give you like very specific example of things that I was doing, I started a series called Cold Email Mistakes. And I would, because like lemlist at first was focused on cold email, and I would do posts on LinkedIn. At the time it was videos, because videos were working like really well. And I would do like one video, one mistake that I would see people doing. So for example, like not understanding what deliverability is. This is the first mistake. If you don't do all your technical setup, and like for me, maybe it was like easy and simple, but actually for a lot of people, it was very helpful and informative. So I did this series with mistakes, maybe like 20 posts. Then I did like cold email tips, 20 posts. And just like that, you have like 40 posts. So take the problem you're solving, do like the mistakes that people are commonly doing, give also tips on the things that work, and give all your knowledge for free, because people will value it. And very, very quickly, you can position yourself as an expert on a specific topic. And then once you're an expert on a specific topic, you can do what I call like either the elevator strategy or the stair strategy. So elevator strategy would be, for example, for me, if tomorrow I can interview like Elon Musk, that would be an elevator, because obviously like his audience is like huge and mine is like quite small compared to him. But what you can do when you get started is basically like interview people who are like at one stage ahead of you. And whenever you interview them, you can also benefit from their audience. To give you like a very simple, like maybe image, like if tomorrow, like you walk into a restaurant and you see me like hanging out with Beyonce and Barack Obama, obviously you're going to be like, oh yeah, G is cool. Like that's,
it's what I'm doing right now.
Exactly. Yeah. Thanks for, I like the comparison to Beyonce, Finn.
Yes. You're the Beyonce of SaaS, of Bootstrap SaaS. There you go.
Exactly.
Queen Bee of SaaS.
That's the thing, it's like association phenomenon works really well. And I really don't understand why founders don't do it. Like, so for me, I had the chance to interview probably like all the best like sales superstar, from Aaron Ross, author of like the best selling book, on the predictable revenue, etc. Like people at HubSpot, people, who had like the biggest like sales agencies in the US, etc. And it was like so easy, because the first thing they did was look at my profile on LinkedIn. Even though, I didn't have the reach that I have now at first, like my first post, I think I had like 1 like from my mom. And then after that, like I asked her to create the LinkedIn profile. She didn't get bad. That's a good thing. But eventually, like you build up a bit more like trust. I think the advice I could give, like if I had to put myself in the shoes of someone who is basically like starting, it's first thing you need to do, like if we need to be very specific about how to get started. First, remove the self-limiting belief that you're not good enough at creating content, etc. So to do so, the thing you need to do is do the rule of 100. The rule of 100 means you need to write 100 posts in 100 days, just to build that muscle. You don't have to write every day, because posts can be written in batch, but you must do it so you can build a habit and get better at it. The second thing is if your post is shit, and it will probably be like the first one, and the algorithm of LinkedIn is smart enough so your post will not be seen by many people. So trust the algorithm at first, to just get the word out. And that's fine. So first thing is build a very small group of either other entrepreneurs or people in your network that can support you whenever, you're making a post where you believe you have the strong conviction that it's a good post. Ask them to put a like, a comment, etc. Just so eventually their network will see it. You can do it on WhatsApp or whatever. Like at first, just get that confidence boost. And eventually, as you scale, you will see that everything will come out naturally and you don't have to do anything else. You can also comment on other people's posts. Personally, I've never truly done that because I think it takes me a lot of time to read a post. Often when I see a post that is good, I'm just going to like it. And I don't spend too much time commenting, but I know that it works well. I know that a lot of people, for example, comment on my post, and eventually I see they even comment to comments, because that way they create connections with people who are active at commenting, and eventually they build their own network. But it's a social platform, so pretty easy to connect with people, and you just have to spend time on it. But in the long run, it's an investment that you will never regret, because it's an investment on yourself. Your audience is something you'll keep your entire life. People who know you, it's something that you'll keep and that you'll stay. So if your business eventually fail tomorrow, if you want to do something else or whatever, your audience is, I'm going to give you a very simple example. So LinkedIn, I think I'm at 50K. On Instagram, I'm around 230K follower. I was training for an Ironman, and 1 week before the race, it was actually a bit more than a month ago, I got hit by a car. So my bike totally broke. I broke my ribs. Right now I started rehab this week. So I took my sling off. I'm super happy about it.
Nice.
And eventually, this community of people within, as soon as I shared a photo of me in the hospital or whatever and the bike broken, I had people who booked meeting with the bus surgeon in Paris for me, sent me all the supplements I need to take based on my injury, etc. And I didn't even pay for anything. They asked me for my address, sent me stuff, sent me all the recovery tools. I had so many amazing things happening just because of an audience. So of course it's very personal, but your audience is really something that you can use for pretty much anything, because people are usually grateful when you bring value to them and help them achieve their dreams.
All right, I'm going to get to comments now. So Laurencio actually a couple minutes ago already said, Guillaume, just wanted to mention that you look great for a guy that was hit by a car just a month ago. Hope the recovery goes well.
Yeah, it's quite nice. I have just, still some little bruise and everything, but yeah, getting well.
Love it. Jack David on the LinkedIn live stream says, love the Marco Polo method, turn your personal journal into posts. Ariana is giving us fire emojis. Now, Carlos, I'm going to get to your question. So Carlos says, we'd love to know strategies and specific tools for building a personal brand on LinkedIn as a founder. Now, I'm going to use this opportunity to, I think, recap a couple things that you mentioned, which I think plays to the strategy part. So a couple things that you mentioned. One, get over your shadow, do the rule of 100, just write 100 posts in 100 days and just build that muscle. What should you talk about in those 100 posts? One, document your journey. You mentioned the Marco Polo, strategy. I think Gary Vee calls it document, don't create. Especially be vulnerable. I think the great part about vulnerability is that it's always a way to stand out, because vulnerability by definition are the things that you are uncomfortable saying, because if you're not uncomfortable saying those things, they're not vulnerable. And so by definition, most people are not willing to share those things. So you will always have a competitive advantage if you're being vulnerable. Share your unique point of view. You started a company, you probably have a unique point of view on the market, on the product landscape. So share that. And then escalator strategy, try to speak to people who are 1, 2, 3 levels above you, get them on your podcast, interview them, because that will kind of rub off on you. I call it the halo effect. Now, 2 questions. 1, any other strategies you would share here? And then 2, to that second part of the question on tools that you use for your personal brand.
Yeah, I think when it comes to tools, obviously I'm biased because it's a tool I own, but in reality, the reason I acquired both of these companies is because I was using them and I knew the potential. So Actually, the first company I acquired was like Tweet Hunter. I'm not like really big on Twitter, but I think like there are really like dope content and much more in-depth content on Twitter than you can find on LinkedIn. And the idea of both Tweet Hunter and Taplio is to actually find lots of ideas and basically like make your process of creating content and posting content a lot faster. So obviously, you have like the AI part that helps you generate posts, generate hooks, which I think is great, especially in the beginning, because you don't really know like what a good hook is. So you can test a lot of different approach. And I think like AI, which is basically like GPT-4 with like prompting, etc., gets you like a lot of ideas faster and you can like rearrange it. It's also great because for me, the biggest struggle I see with people is like when you start from a blank page, it's kind of like you have a pressure. And the first thing you should do, it's like find like keywords of interest. And then from this directly on Taplio or like Tweet Hunter, you will find all the posts that work really well on these topics. And what I do personally, like the way I create content is when I see a post where I agree, I'm going to try to like rephrase it and do it like in my own style, potentially attaching like a story that I had to make it like more relatable. And that's like one piece of content. Or the other thing I do is nice. We have a Taplio user. Yeah, that's cool. And you can see like, yeah, that's impressive. Love it. And something.
So yeah, you get your dashboard here, right, with your impressions and everything. I think what I really use a lot is kind of detailed post performance, and you can sort it. And I think especially what you can do is for like one, you can analyze kind of what worked well in the last couple of months, and two, you can also if I for example set it to like 2023, I can then see what performed best in 2023 and maybe repost some of those or reuse them.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think like the repurposing, it's something that's most people like underestimate. But typically, if you take like all the best profile, like I don't know, like Justin Welch, etc., eventually you will see that they reuse a lot of their content, and I think this is what works. Like when you see something working with your audience, I guess this is a demo effect.
This is the demo effect. What am I doing wrong? Personal description, LinkedIn,
like that, post publish, topics. Please talk about them and Jen. Okay. If you click on filters, what do you see?
We're finding a bug live.
Exactly. Okay.
I should have personal description.
All right.
LinkedIn only.
This is recorded. I will message like the support.
Yeah.
Okay. Can you refresh maybe just on the department and yell again?
Yeah. There we go, guys. Live. Kidding. This is what happens. This is, this is sharing the fail. But no, I mean, so far I never had problems with that feature. Classic. The tech always gets nervous when we need it. Exactly. Exactly. Oh my God. If you've ever used LinkedIn Live, that's exactly the product. LinkedIn Live is such a buggy product. Anytime you have like something that you need to just work, it doesn't. It fails.
Yeah.
So yeah, that I guess that answers the tools question. So Tweet Hunter and Taplio. Anything else that you use?
No, to be honest, like something I love and very few people maybe know about it, but when you go on someone's LinkedIn profile, because what I would do is try to list founders in your sphere or like founders or marketers or whomever you follow and you like the content, you can list them. And what I do regularly is I would visit their profile and then you can click on the Taplio extension and it will give you like all their best and top performing posts. That way you can kind of like see what has been working like really well for them. And I think like this is quite cool. We also acquired another company that was doing that on Twitter. Maybe you've heard of them. It's called 26M. And it's really cool because it's like you go on Twitter, you go on someone's profile and directly you see like, because I think Twitter, lots of people tweet, sometimes like one sentences and they tweet every day. So going through their content is kind of like messy. So with 26M, it's directly, you have like the top performing post and it's pretty awesome.
Right. Yeah. So like basically looking what other people in your space are posting, getting inspiration on that. And that helps you not start from a blank canvas because you can probably see, hey, I kind of disagree with this point a little bit, or I feel like I can add this to that point of view. So I love that.
Typically I remember like it was actually quite funny because I remember Alex Hormozy, like obviously he created like tons of good content, but at some point like he created something I really disagree with. He was saying like, yeah, as a CEO, if you don't work like 140 hours every week, and then I was like, I was doing the math and I was like, I mean, I like you, bro, but like the math doesn't work out. Like, I mean, you know, you need 8 hours of sleep if you want to be like really like at peak performance. You need like XYZ. And my comments got like, I think, more likes than his post, and he decided to delete his post. But then I decided to take my comment and make a post out of it. And
Nice.
and that's actually like a tips I forgot to tell you that you can do, and that works really well. When you see like a post, and I think maybe it's easier like if you're still like struggling to get started, I think commenting is a bit less engaging. So go on finding like topics that you're interested in, spend time writing like really long form comments, because most people would say like great idea or I love this, or sometimes they use an AI that gives a comment that's totally like irrelevant. So if you really spend a bit of time writing a comment, if you start seeing people liking your comment, let's say like 5, 6 to 10 or whatever, like people liking the comment, then you can reuse that as a post, because you already have like the initial validation that what you're saying is actually resonating like quite well with people, and that's something you can reuse. It's simple trick, but it works well.
Love it. All right, we got to do a little quick fire now because I have like 8 question or something collected from like the comments, and we got
I
10
thought
minutes
too
left.
much. I'm sorry.
No, it's perfect. So Laurencio asked, how do you keep track of feature requests from your early customers, and how do you and the team prioritize the development of these features being a bootstrap companies?
Yeah. So initially, like I was keeping track of everything in Notion, to be honest. Like, and the prioritization for me, I always like split it into two categories. One is called like business impact. You can call it like whatever you want, but it's basically like how much impact do you think as a founder it will have? So the way I calculate it is usually like how many people ask for it and what's my conviction. So it's a bit like of a mix of those two things. And then we have like technical difficulty. If obviously like it's, let's say, like 5 as an impact on business, which means like really high, and a technical difficulty of 1, which is like really low, this is getting like super high priority. But if it's like 5, you know, in business and 5 in tech, maybe you want to prioritize things that can be shipped kind of like faster. And the way you kind of have the tech team work, I always try for them to have like long-term projects, which are like T5 and business 5. So like high difficulty in tech, but high business impact. So that's kind of like the base of the work. They have to be working on this continuously. And then lots of quick wins that can be released. So your marketing and your go-to-market is always on track, and your customers are seeing that their development being shipped continuously.
All right, Renee asked, if you were to start over, how would you find a great idea in this overcrowded AI SaaS space?
I think there are like tons of ways like to find great ideas. I like, to be honest, like solving your own problem. I know that people like usually like say it's a bad idea, but for me, I think it's what I've done like mostly. If there are like tools you're using and you're frustrated about it and you're like, why the hell is it working like this? It takes you like literally, I don't know, like a day to test an idea and see. Like you just reach out to 10, 20 people. You see whether or not they are like frustrated by the same thing. If the answer is yes, then you build like a MVP very quickly, and then you test it and you ask for money, you know. If people pay, then you have something. If people don't pay, you don't have like something. So instead of looking for ideas, I will always look for problems. Another way is basically finding like subreddits, or like you know, like going onto like, you know, your competition or potential competitors and see, you know, like what people are putting on reviews. So I love to go on review websites. From review website, what I do is like I filter them from the lowest review to the top review. And then I see, you know, like, okay, like this business is making maybe like 10 million in ARR, but all their reviews is like 3 stars. How can I do better? And I think like these are the things that you can do. Like, for example, MailChimp, I know like if you look, there are lots of people who are frustrated by their pricing model, etc. The fact that it keeps increasing the more email lists they had. So lots of people just change the pricing strategy and grew very quickly to like tens of millions in ARR. So I think there are lots of opportunities like this. Another tips, you can go to like Flippa, Microacquire, or these kind of things, where you look at how much a business is being sold at or for. And eventually, like from there, it's quite easy also to say, yeah, like, I mean, that business is being sold at X. They're doing that amount of revenue. I can see, you know, like all their metrics. And from there, you know, like try to find businesses with like low churn, high growth, or like at least like decent revenue. And then ask yourself, can I do better? If you're running out of idea and you just want to make like a project where you can earn money, I think this is pretty easy to do.
if you're the marketing go-to-market type person, which sounds like that's also you, or you're running an agency, and from that you get an idea, how do you think about finding a technical partner to help build the actual product or the tech?
Yeah, it's a good question. It's always like the hardest part. So I can like give you like insight because I've helped I think like 2 or 3 people like in the last 2 months like building a SaaS with freelancers. First, you need like a budget. Define like clearly a budget. So typically, what I would say, usually, if you are like in a crowded market, I would say go with a co-founder, and it's gonna be the hard pass, which is like finding devs. So you have to go to like meetups. You should already be working in a SaaS company, and you should already be working with developers, because this is the best way to learn if you fit with someone and not waste shit tons of time. You can go to the YC matchmaking platform. So they can give you like, there are developers with ideas or no ideas, and there are founders with ideas or no ideas who want to match, and they help you out to do this. So this is quite a good one. But if you have like an agency, you're generating money, and you have like something quite unique, or at least that doesn't really exist right now, that you want to launch, you would need, I would say, like $3,000 per developer, like $2,000 to $3,000. You go on Upwork, you find people working in like, use the most well-known like JavaScript framework if you want to build a SaaS. So it can be React and Node. I would say like that's a basic, or Vue.js, or whatever like JavaScript framework is fine, to be honest. Of course, it can be any other language, but I think like knowing a bit how the hiring works, it's always best to start with like JavaScript, so you can find more developers later if it works. So I would always take 2 to 3 developers, which means that's a total budget of 10K. And then you have them do the exact same task, which is a task that should deliver enough value for one customer to pay. So, and that's, I think, the work that most business person don't want to do, is how can you simplify your idea to the one feature that will make difference for someone. And it doesn't have to be something crazy. Like, I can give you an example. A friend of mine, he wanted to do something a bit advanced, like, hey, you know what? Like, you can actually like filter people who visited your profile in Sales Navigator based on a specific ICP. But to do so, you need to go on Sales Navigator, do it manually. Like, it takes a lot of time. So he just wanted to build an extension that will eventually like be a CSV that they can export. So like the first version is just this, you know?
Right.
But with that, you can sell it, because for people, it means like they have a CSV and it's a list. So the Chrome extension is ugly, the whole feature is ugly, but for a dev, it will take them maybe like, I don't know, like less than a week to build. So I will always try, you know, to have this less than a week shitty feature that you can build, but that will deliver enough value for you to start making some quick bucks. And then if you see like that you're having traction, then it's worth to invest a little bit more.
And would you then stay with kind of freelancers, fractional people, contractors, or if you have some validation, do you then go find the co-founder?
It depends how much cash you have. Like, I think it's really a matter of cash. Because I think like ideally, you know, like you want people full time on the project.
Yeah.
But I think like testing, the reality is like, if you never worked with developers before and you want to go into SaaS, it's really like a matter of luck. I've worked with a lot of developers who basically like try to screw me a little bit, but you know, like, because I could also like check what they were doing and I had like some code knowledge, like it was helpful for me. But the reality, it's like at some point you only know if someone is a fit if you work with them for some time. And even though my advice would be like, if you're building a tech product and you're not a technical person, I would always say, you know, like find a co-founder and someone you get on well. The reality is like, it's really hard to do so. So try to start with freelancers. And once you see that you have traction, then it's a lot easier to convince someone to join your project. Like,
right.
Because you have to put yourself in a developer's shoes. How many people do you think come to them and say, hey, I've got this business idea. It's $1 billion business. And yeah, it's like, it happens like every single day. But if you come and say, you know what, like this is a landing page. We have like 20 people on the wait list. I've onboarded like 5 people with this dirty MVP. You can even like try to code it with ChatGPT. Like it can work out like in some ways. And if you show that to someone, then, you know, like your trust power is a
Right.
lot stronger.
Ruben asks, I'm super curious how you think about work ethic of the team. Do you expect people to work 60 plus hours?
Do I expect people to work 60 plus hours? No, personally, like I expect people to like just like be passionate about what they do, and I think like work should come in season, you know, like working, I don't know, like 60, 70 hours like every week for years, it's not sustainable. But whenever you have like projects that are important to ship, etc., I think it's important that, you know, like you work really hard and then you rest when it needs to be. And resting doesn't mean like being on holidays, you know, like of course holidays are like super important, but resting is like sometimes I have weeks at work where I'm going to work way less because the week before I worked a lot harder. And that's exactly the same with our team. Like basically, like I don't even check the hours people are doing, to be honest. I just like judge the quality of what people can produce. If you are like super efficient and can do like the full day of work in like 6 hours per day, that's fine. But the reality is like most often what I've found when people ask me this question, for example, in interview, and where they say like, yeah, because I'm usually like super productive and I can do a lot in very little time. Usually like these people are not productive at all. Like, and they can't do a lot in a lot of time. Like that's my personal experience. I've seen people like being super productive, but they usually like don't really talk about the time they work. They just do the stuff and show the results, and then you're like, yeah, it's cool.
All right. Unfortunately, we're at time. I have a million more questions, but Guillaume, this was amazing. We got Mikhail, your CTO, in the live stream. He says, hello.
Okay, Michael, we need to have a chat. We had an issue with taplio.
Oh, yeah, right. You're fired, Michael. We determined that you're fired. Guillaume, this was amazing. Thank you so much for your time. Guys, if you want to just drop in the chat, I don't know what you learned or what you took away from this conversation. I learned a ton and I appreciate your time. And if people are not following you on LinkedIn or Instagram or YouTube or all these places where you're creating amazing content, they definitely should. And yeah, we're going to wrap up here. So thank you so much.
Awesome. Thanks a lot.
All right. Peace out. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Take care.
And guys, if you joined late, this is going to be this. You can head out. If you guys joined late, this is recorded and it's going to go out on our podcast and YouTube and all those things. They're on our website in the footer if you want to sign up for those things. And then, yeah, that's it. Thank you guys so much for joining. And we do this every couple of weeks. So I'll see you maybe on one of the future ones. Peace out, guys. Bye. Bye, Rachel. Bye, Renee. Bye, Laurencio. Bye, Ty, Prasad, Ruben, Karn. Thank you guys so much. Bye-bye.